You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholic, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, and press them guns. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And this is just this season's gone south real quick. You know, everything was looking, I wouldn't say peachy after the first two games, but at least the Saints defense was looking elite. You know, and they were able to pull off those wins. And yeah, going from 2-0 to 2-2 pretty quick, and 2-3 may be heading towards us pretty quickly here. And it was one thing, you know, when the offense was kind of slow and was taking till like the fourth quarter to kind of get going, but the defense was elite. The defense was elite like the first 8, 9, 10, about the first 11 quarters of the season, and then they fell off in the fourth quarter against Green Bay, and it seems like it kind of carried over in this game against the Buccaneers, and they just haven't recovered yet. So the one thing you could rely on early in the season, it doesn't look as reliable as it was, and I think I just don't have there's not a lot of positives to take from this game, but let's get into some of the highlights and key moments, and then we'll go over game picks and player of the game and all that. But let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so this is the first drive, and this is really the only time the Saints look good. Like I had this just kind of gained a little bit more confidence back in them, at least the offense, especially wasn't sure what Derek Carr was going to look like coming back from sprained shoulder just a week later. But so this drive, this is like the first play that's kind of like noticeable that you think, oh, okay, maybe the offense is a little bit different. Maybe they have a different kind of way to attack teams because they got Alvin Kamara back. So it's the 14:23 mark of the first quarter, and it's 1st and 10, and Derek Carr passes out of the backfield to Alvin Kamara, a little swing route out of the backfield, and picks up 12 yards. So, you know, they're getting Alvin Kamara involved early in this game, and he picks up more than enough for a first down. So that's just a great way to start the drive. But they ended up targeting Alvin Kamara had a decent day when it came to rushing, like total yards, you know, from scrimmage. He had a decent day. Like they should have. I know they got down pretty early in this game, but they probably should have ran more because Alvin Kamara had 11 rushes for 51 yards with a 4.6 average and a long of 13. But the crazy stat is the stat that he had 13 catches, but was only able to accumulate 33 yards on those 13 catches, and that's like an average of 2.5 yards a catch, and that came off of 14 targets. So early and often in this game, Derek Carr was targeting Alvin Kamara out of the backfield or little little cell routes underneath and to the sidelines, but maybe it was to be his check down because his shoulder wasn't 100%, so you didn't really see a lot of throws deep in the middle or intermediate throws. It was a lot of short stuff and a couple shot plays in this game. That's about all you really got from Derek Carr, and his accuracy looked a little bit off. on some of the throws. Some of his throws were maybe a little high and hard to catch, and making it to where Bucs defenders could make plays on them, or they were even low and making the catches more difficult for receivers than probably maybe 100% healthy Carr would have made better throws. So, but yeah, they're getting Alvin Kamara involved. So my initial thought is, well, this is good. Maybe it'll open up stuff for some other players. But so then it gets to the 13:44 mark of the first quarter, and Carr completes a pass to Mike Thomas, for 12 yards as well, and they're moving, they're looking pretty good. And then they get down like inside the Bucs, around the 20-yard line of the Buccaneers. So it looks like that they're probably going to score, get a touchdown here. And then it's the 10-minute and 48 mark of the first quarter, and I think it was first and 10, and he was either first and 10 or second and like 6 or something. And they do this like trick play to it's like a play where uh, Derek Carr fakes like he's going to hand off to Taysom Hill, and then Alvin Kamara is coming around like on the end around, and Derek Carr pitches it to him, and it loses 7 yards. So it just completely destroys this play. It must have been like 2nd and 7 on this play. So that just completely kills the pretty much the only positive drive of the game. The Saints just getting too cute on that play. I understand that they had Alvin Kamara back, and they maybe thought they could get a big play from a trick play like that, but it just wasn't necessary. It's too early in the game, and that first drive was way too important to pull something like that out of your bag of tricks, Pete Carmichael. And then it's the 10-minute and 10:02 of the first quarter. It's 3rd and 14 after the trick play was blown up, and Derek Carr passes to Taysom Hill, and it looks like Taysom Hill is about to pick up the first down. It looks like he's got a good amount of space in front of him to where he can maybe get some yards after the catch, and he slips and falls down, and he only got 9 yards of the 14 that he needed to get, and that just kills the drive. So they just have to settle for a field goal there. So really, that was like the most offensive output that you're going to see from the Saints in this game. So it was exciting while it lasted. That they had at least they got the lead for a moment in this game. I mean, it was just 3 points, but they did lead for a moment in this game. So then this is something that haunted the Saints all game, and it was really a surprise that this wasn't as big of an issue in the game against Green Bay and Jordan Love and Carolina and Bryce Young, but it was a glaring issue. And out of all people, it's Baker Mayfield. Like, he's not known for his really like his athletic ability. Like, he's athletic and has good movement in the pocket, but he's not really known as like a great scrambler or a running quarterback. But he burned the Saints 3 or 4 times in this game scrambling. So it's the 7:43 mark of the first quarter. It's a 3rd and 6. So it's 3rd and 6. All they have to do is hold them here, and they were going to get them off the field to where they would have to punt. So, but let's see, he scrambles for 6 yards, picking up the first down, and then no points came from that drive, but it was still that it ended up becoming an issue later in the game. So the Saints end up being able to hold them, and they only got to like midfield. The Bucs did, so it looked like, oh, maybe the Saints defense is still good. They were able to stop that, but that scrambling stuff by Baker Mayfield ended up being a big issue in this game later on. But they were able to overcome it on the Buccaneers' first drive there. So then it's It's the 2:56 mark of the first quarter. It's a 3rd and 7, and Carr passes out of the backfield for a 10-yard gain and a first down. So it looks here like maybe the Saints are going to be able to move it again. And then the Saints are like around midfield. It's the 14:23 mark of the second quarter, and it's a 3rd and 5. So the Saints, they've moved a little bit down the field, and I think they may have started like at the Bucs 20. So they've moved down the field a few yards, and uh, so taking into account it's a 3rd and 5 here, and Derek Carr just passes deep to Shaheed, and it's just like way over his head, like it's not even close to being completed. And that's kind of where I go back and hark back to, like, really, do we know how injured Derek Carr was coming into this game? Like, just with some of the throws he made, and even just decisions there, it was hard to know, how healthy he was, or if that's just not a great decision, going deep on 3rd and 5 when all you needed was 5 yards, and you go deep knowing that maybe you're a little not as healthy and not as able to make that throw if you were 100% healthy. So that ends up killing that drive, and the Saints have to punt there. And then it's a 11:20 mark of the uh, first quarter. It's a 1st and 10, and it's yeah, 1st and 10. And that's the second quarter. Mayfield passes to Mike Evans for like a 15-yard pass against Lattimore. So it looked like he was maybe going to start. Mike Evans was going to start becoming an issue in this game with that play, but I think he only maybe made like one more catch in this game, and thought that he was going to win this after like those 2 catches or so. Let me see here. Uh, yeah, Mike Evans. Now he had 3 catches for 40 yards. That's more than I thought he had, because thought he only had like 2 catches. But it was looking early on like he was gonna maybe win the battle between him and Marshawn Lattimore. But he ended up. This is something else that's so frustrating about this game. He ended up. I guess it was towards like the end of the second quarter. He ended up going out with like a hamstring injury. So the Buccaneers, without like one of their best offensive players, maybe their best wide receiver, and the Saints still couldn't stop them. So, but yeah, they make that big 15-yard completion to move down the field, and then it's the 10-minute mark of the second quarter. It's a 3rd and 7, so we're at 3rd and 7 again, and Mayfield scrambles again for 7 yards and picks up a first down. So that's just like having Mayfield scramble around back there and then pick up a first down on 3rd down. That's just back breaking for a team and a defense. And then they get down into the red zone of the Saints. It's a 5:19 minute of the second quarter. It's a third and goal at the Saints 4-yard line, and the pass rush, it couldn't get there. It just got there a tick late. Cameron Jordan got there just a tick late, and Mayfield was able to just flip it forward to Cade Otton for a touchdown. So that also was back breaking, not being able to hold them to 3 points there when you get them backed up a little bit to their own 4-yard line, and Mayfield is having to hold on the ball forever, and the sack is just a step late. So he's able to flip the flip the to Cade Otton for the touchdown. And those kind of plays, when it looks like, oh, you're going to stop them, get a sack, and push them back and make them have to go for a field goal, it's just takes all the air and momentum out of you, and basically gives it all to the Buccaneers and your opponent. So then the Saints get it back here towards the end of the second quarter. It's a 3:01 mark of the second quarter. It's a 3rd and 4, and Derek Carr, he's kind of back. He's kind of holding on to the ball a little bit too long in this game. That was something he did, I think, kind of on their second play. He kind of held on to their second drive. He kind of held on to the ball a little bit too long, but then was able to kind of maneuver the pocket, and at the last second he flipped it to Adam Prentice, who ends up just straight up dropping it. But that carried over into like the second quarter on this play. So he held on to the ball a little bit long, which just seems kind of weird that it's a 3rd and 4 and he's must be looking at his deeper routes to develop when all you need is 4th down. So that really comes into question of like the play caller, like the offensive coordinator. What kind of plays are you calling on 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 5 earlier in the game where he was able to throw it deep, but it was incomplete to Shaheed. But he gets sacked here, so that just kills that drive. And then the Buccaneers get the ball back, and they're moving down the field. It looks like they're gonna just march right back down the field and score another touchdown. So it's the 46-second mark of the second quarter. Second quarter still going on, and it's 2nd and 2, and Mayfield takes like a deep shot, like a kind of like I think it was like a 18 to 20 yard like shot to the end zone, and it's intercepted by Isaac Yadam. So that was a big play there. It was a big momentum shift. But right when the play happened, like I was interested, like, well, where are they going to mark him? Like I thought I honestly thought that maybe they were going to call it like his forward momentum, his forward momentum was stopped. And I was really afraid that was going to get called down at the 1. But then they kind of show another replay, and it was pretty clear that like the it wasn't his own momentum that was stopped, and his forward progress was stopped. Like it was the defender, tackling him around the waist and like pulling him into the end zone. So that was just like a really bad call. Like that should have been a touchdown, a touchback that brought them out to their own 20. And then the Saints, maybe, I don't know how the game was really going there. Maybe they would have just kneeled it out and went into the second half. Or maybe they would have tried a couple plays to try to get in field goal range. But that's not what happened. They ended up spotting it at the 1 yard line. And hell, I was more concerned that there's maybe going to be a safety on the play. It didn't cross my mind that they may turn it right back over to them. But out of all the calls this season, with like quite a few like pass interference calls not being called and going the Saints' way, I would say this was the worst call the Saints have had go against them this year. But anyways, so it's the 41-second mark of the second quarter. It's 1st and 10, and I'm just thinking they just need to get out of their end zone a little bit so they can just kneel it down and get into halftime without giving up any points, because it was just 7-3 at this point in the game. So it's still a close game. It's still competitive. It's not one team has like all the momentum yet, especially after the Saints got the interception there. That kind of gave them a little bit of a boost. But the Saints give it to Adam Prentice. Here's Adam Prentice again making a boneheaded play after having the drop that should have been like a 15, 20-yard completion, catch and run. But they give it to him on a fullback dive, and he fumbles it. He fumbles it at the 1 yard line. So just after the Saints turnover, they just give it right back to them. And then it's the 22-second mark of the second quarter. It's 2nd and goal. Mayfield goes to Trey Palmer for a touchdown, and then it was on Isaac Yadam, who had the interception. So Isaac Yadam, your backup DB corner to Paulson Adebo, who would be your starter, which that was something I was concerned about going into the Green Bay game, is how they're missing Marcus May due to suspension. They're missing Paulson Adebo, your number one, your starting cornerback, your number 2 starting outside cornerback, and then even Jason Houting was out in this game due we already went over that due to a finger. And this showed up. The issues in the secondary showed up in the end, at the end of the Packers game, and then it carried over into this game. But you can't really blame Isaac Yadam or be too hard on him on this play, because he got the interception that should have been down at the 20. But even if it wasn't down at the 20, it still shouldn't have cost the Saints any points like it did, because Adam Prentice turned it right back over, and he got scored on. They gave up a touchdown pass to Trey Palmer, but that was just a maddening series of events there. Like the emotion that you felt great, and then you just felt horrible, and that made the game 14-3. And just how the Saints have been playing like all year, that felt like an insurmountable hole for them to dig out of. And that's just, there's still a half to play, which is so frustrating, and it was just terrible to watch. But anyways, moving on to the second half, it's the 11:38 mark of the third quarter. It's a 3rd and 16, and at midfield, Carr goes deep to Olave, which it should have been a touchdown. Early in the season, like after the first two games, they like calculated how many targets and passes Saints receivers had in this game up to that point, and they said like they were like the only team that hadn't had any drops. Well, they had a big drop here. I think Olave had another play in this game where the pass was kind of thrown kind of high, and he kind of had to go up for it, and he dropped that dropped that pass as well. But this should have been like a 50-yard touchdown by Olave that would have got the Saints right back into this game. It would have been, what would it have been, 10-14 then, if it wouldn't have been for this outright drop. They try and act like it was a great play and a pass deflection by Antonio Winfield Jr., but it was a straight up drop. So if I was calculating and monitoring drops in this play, I would give 2 to Olave, which that was kind of an issue last year. His rookie season was drops and getting lit up on big hits in games, getting concussed and getting lit up, getting hurt from getting that hit stick dropped on him. But it looks like he's having that drop problem a little bit now again, which is just so frustrating. It's not even that you don't get the touchdown there. It's just like you don't get the touchdown, but you also don't get the big play that gives you does a little bit of a momentum swing. Like not getting that touchdown there swings the momentum the other way even more, because then they have to punt there. So then Saints, so that was 3rd and 16. Must have been, yeah. So then the Saints, they trade drives with the Buccaneers. Buccaneers don't do anything on their next drive, and then the Saints move the ball a little bit. It's the 1:31 mark of the third quarter. It's a 3rd and 9, and Derek Carr passes short underneath, short of the first down, and they have to settle for a field goal there. They're not able. I understand it's a 3rd and long, but it didn't even get them close enough to at least have the opportunity to think about maybe going for it or anything. So then they have to settle for a field goal there, and that makes the game 14-6 there. So even with how the game's gone, pretty much any chance to grasp any momentum has pretty much gone the Bucs' way all game. But that made it a 1-score game. Going into the fourth quarter, to make it just like a touchdown and a 2-point conversion game. But of course, right after they get that and get like a little bit of something going, the Buccaneers just kind of march right back down the end zone. And when they're on this drive, I thought they were going to score a touchdown, but it's a it's the 4:20, the 14:20 mark of the fourth quarter. It's a 3rd and 10, and the Buccaneers are at the Saints 40. So if the Saints were able to hold them there with an incompletion or run for no gain, it would have been like a 58-yarder. So that's a long field goal, but we kind of already know that opposing teams, when kicking field goals under 60 yards, that they're probably almost automatically gonna get it, but they didn't even have to kick it from that long because Mayfield, he scrambled for, I think he scrambled for 7 yards on that play, getting close to almost picking up the first down, but it got them quite a bit closer to where the field goal then only ended up being a 51-yarder. And on the broadcast, they were talking it's a long field goal for young kicker Chase McGloin, and I was thinking like, whatever, they're gonna bang this thing right down the middle and get all the momentum back and make it a what 11-point game again. So, and that's exactly what happened. He kicked the 51-yarder like it was nothing, and that just continued to take the life out of the Saints. And then Saints get it back. They get a little bit something going. They get into Buccaneers territory. It's the 8:34 mark of the fourth quarter. It's a 4th and 10, and Blake Grupe hits a 44-yard field goal. So it shows that he has the distance and the ability to hit those kind of pressure kicks, because this was a pressure kick and it was almost the same length as the 56-yarder that he missed against Green Bay. But the difference was it was on the far right hash instead of the far left hash. That seemed like it definitely makes it easier for them to kick. So the Saints cut into the lead again, so where it was 17-9. So it's a one score lead again by the Bucs. It's just 8 points, a touchdown, 2-point conversion. So Saints are still alive here. They're still alive. And so then the Buccaneers, they're at close to midfield. It's the 4:11 mark of the fourth quarter. It's a 3rd and 7. So the Saints, if they could get the stop here, it would give them a big boost of momentum, and they would have a chance to go and maybe tie the game up. But no, they give up a 57-yard pass, run and catch to Chris Godwin and get down to the Saints 5-yard line, and that was the nail in the coffin for the Saints. Like after that happened, I was like, this game is over. It's not even really worth watching anymore. But of course, you just continue to watch. It's like you're watching a car wreck in slow motion, and you can't do anything about it. So then it's the 3:53 mark of the fourth quarter. It's 3rd and goal. Mayfield has all day to throw on this play. He had like 10 seconds to run or to just run around back there in the pocket, and no one got even close to him. Like at the very last second of him throwing, I guess there was like 3 Saints defenders kind of getting close to him, but he had maybe like, I don't know, like 10 seconds being able to stand back there, and then he throws a 5-yard touchdown to Devin Tompkins, and that's just like pretty much it. This game wasn't even really worth watching after that. But here's like a little bit of a positive, kind of a jokingly positive. One of the few positives to take out of this game is that the Buccaneers, they went for the 2-point conversion at the 3:44 mark to make it try to make it 25. Yeah, 20, yeah, to make it 25-9, but they weren't able to get it. The Saints defense had given up two 2-point conversions in the last 2 weeks, but they were able to get the stop here. So that's a positive, being able to stop the 2-point conversion try. So then it's 25-3. Carr gets strip sacked, and they're able to get another cheap field goal, and it's 26-9. And then on the Saints' last drive, they bring in Jameis Winston, and his first play goes deep, and the receiver slips down and throws pretty much the game-ending interception. The game was already over at that point, so it was 26-9. And this is a crazy stat that people weren't really talking about quite as much as they were talking about the defense. The defense being good and being able to hold teams under 20 points, which they weren't able to do in this game. So the streak got broke at 11. The mark to tie or try to break was at 12 with the 93-94 Cleveland Browns. So that's another sad and depressing thing that came from this game, is the Saints defense wasn't able to continue to keep people under 20 points. But a similar record like that they were able to keep going was the record of being able to score 21 points. Their offense to do basically the same thing. They haven't scored more than 21 points since November 30th against the Rams when they scored 27 points. So that's a horrible record to be streak and record to have going. You know, it was great having it on defense, which it came in, but that's terrible. That's awful to think. A modern day NFL offense can't score more than 21 points since uh, coming up on almost a year now. In another month or so, that'll be, I guess, about a month and a half. That'll be a year. Let's hope they can get get that trend to come to an end. But so this game was just like horrible, not enjoying to watch at all. I will say this: uh, this loss wasn't as bad and as heartbreaking as the game against Green Bay, but it was still very distasteful and very hard game to sit through and watch. And this is another stat that came from this game since like the 43 years or something that the Saints or since the Buccaneers have been in the NFC South or have just been a team in general. I'm pretty sure the Saints have been around longer than them. The Buccaneers have never beat the Saints 3 times in a row, which that's a crazy stat because the Saints haven't always been good, but that's another horrible thing to mark up against the Saints. So now the Saints have lost the last 3 games to the Buccaneers, and they don't even have Tom Brady anymore, even though Baker Mayfield looked like Tom Brady in this game. But let's get into some stats here, even though there's nothing really good to go off of. So Derek Carr, he was 20. Let's see, he was. Let's see if this goes over here. He was 23 for 37 so he threw it 37 times and was only able to get 127 yards. No touchdowns. At least he didn't throw an interception, but his quarterback rating was a 68.2, and he was sacked, I believe. He was sacked 2 or 3 times, I believe. I'm trying to remember if one of those sacks was on Winston, but he was sacked at least twice and strip sacked. He was sacked 3 times. I think all of those were him. So that's the 4th game in a row where Derek Carr's been sacked 3 or more times in a game, and he was strip sacked. So that was the first time he's lost a fumble in a game. So that wasn't good either. And then obviously went over James Winston. He was 0 for 1 and an interception. And then Alvin Kamara, who we talked about earlier, it looked kind of early on before they got down by 2 scores that the running game was there. I think the offensive line played as good as it has all year. I think they gave up the 3 sacks, but I think pretty much all of those were because Derek Carr held on to the ball too long. So I think this was the offensive line's best game when in run blocking and pass blocking. So Alvin Kamara, he was averaging close to 5 yards a carry with 11 rushes for 51 yards, with a 4.6 yard average with the 13 long. So he looked good, but no one else really contributed. Adam Prentice only had the 1 carry where he fumbled. Kendra Miller, which is kind of weird because he looked like he was kind of heating up towards like the end of the first half against Green Bay last week. Only had 1 carry, and then Taysom Hill just had 4 carries that he really wasn't able to do anything with. Only had like 10 yards off of them, and then receiving. These were the crazy stats here. Wasn't able to complete a lot of passes. Almost all of them were completed to Alvin Kamara, but Michael Thomas, he keeps having every game he has one of these games where he has like 4 or 5 catches and 50 yards or more, which he's keeping that trend going. Like he's not like prime Michael Thomas, but he's still a good receiver. So he had 4 catches for 53 yards, a 13.3 average with a long of 20. One of those, he should have probably had at least 5 catches with like 60 or 70 yards because one of those passes kind of deep, intermediate over the middle was thrown into the ground by Derek Carr, where Michael Thomas wasn't able to scoop it up. And then Alvin Kamara had the 13 that broke has this record now for 13 catches for 33 yards with a 10.5 average with a long of 10, and that was off 14 targets. So pretty much it was a bunch of catches that were only getting 1 or 2 yards or even going backwards because there was a couple of plays. Most of them were probably more going backwards because he had a couple plays where he got 10, 8 yards and picked up some first downs. Uh, but uh, that he only has 33 yards. Some of those were only for 1 or 2 yards. And then it's just Shaheed had just 3 catches for 33 yards, 11 yard average with a long of 12 and 7 targets. And then Chris Olave only had like a drop. I would say had at least 2 drops. He dropped it like a 56-yard touchdown and or 40 something yard, like a 46-yard. No, it would have been a 50-yard touchdown. They were right at midfield when that happened. And then he dropped another play, like on pass on third down, that was a little high. That would have been a first down. But he only had 1 catch for 4 yards and off of 6 targets. So your three-headed monster at wide receiver didn't show up. Maybe that had more to do with your injured quarterback, Derek Carr, not being able to distribute it and get it to him. But yeah, this wasn't much good when that that was going on or being able to be produced by the Saints offense in this game. But at least Blake Grupe, he had a bounce back game after having the bad miss possible game winner against Green Bay last week. But he was 3 for 3 on all of his field goals and made a 44-yard long. He didn't have any attempt at kicking any extra points because the Saints couldn't get in the end zone. But he accounted for all the Saints points, all 9 points in this game. And then Shaheed, he had uh, one nice return on kickoff returns. It was I think it was a punt return that he had where he picked up quite a few yards. So he had 2 kickoff returns for 39 yards, and then that's like just an average of 19.5. So it just seems like how the season's gone with the kickoffs for him. That he probably just needs to call a fair catch on those and get them all at the 35-yard line. But he had one big punt return that brought the Saints up to midfield, and so he had 2 punt returns for 45 yards, and and that's a 22-point average. Most of that came off of one return that got the Saints to midfield, but I don't think they were able to do anything with it. And then Lou Headley was okay. Like one of his first punts was a shank, but then all the other ones were at least inside the 20, but he didn't have a good average. That may have had more to do with where he was kicking from, but he did have another shank punt that only went like 35, 40 yards, but all of his punts, he was had 4 punts with just a 40.5-yard average. And 3 of them, like I said, 3 of them at least were inside the 20s, but that came all off of like drives by the Saints that like um, uh, died, flamed out at the Saints at midfield, and then he had just a long of 52. But yeah, he still seems to be struggling a little bit. And then your lead tacklers for the day were Mario Davis had five tackles, 2 solo. Tyrann Mathieu had 5 tackles, 3 solo, and Marshawn Lattimore had 5 tackles, all solo. So those were your lead tacklers on the day. Well, Malcolm Roach was really good. And actually, those aren't your lead tacklers. Your lead tacklers were Malcolm Roach and Pete Warner, who both had 8 catches. Malcolm Roach had eight tackles with 3 solo. Pete Warner had 8 tackles for 5 solo. So those were your lead tackles. Malcolm Roach was one of the few defensive linemen that was getting any tackles in the back or tackles in the backfield or pressure on Mayfield. And then Brian Breesy, the rookie, who's looked good. He looks just as good as he did in preseason. He seems like at least one or two plays a game, he makes a big play, an impact play, whether it's a big tackle for a loss or a sack where he's trying to strip the ball out. But he had the Saints' only sack in this game. Like I was saying earlier, Baker Mayfield had like all day to throw in this game, but he had 4 tackles, uh, 3 solo, and just uh, the the one sack that the Saints had all game. So that ended the trend of the Saints having like close to at least like 2 sacks a game. Early on, they were having like 4 sacks a game. They got like 4 sacks on Ryan Tannehill and got 4 on Brian Breesy. But I was saying it was like after the last what 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 13 drives or so, the Saints offense is kind of like falling off. They just hadn't been able to recover from the Green Bay game when the defense kind of went south. Started not playing as well, and that was something that was an issue in this game with the defense, was just missing tackles and letting Buccaneers players and receivers and runners pick up a lot more yards, like cheap yards after the catch. But Baker Mayfield had a great game for the Buccaneers. He was 25 of 34 for 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, and just that one interception, which ended up completely being nullified by Adam Prentice fumbling it on the 1 yard line right after getting it. And then he had a quarterback rating of 116.9. So he was like great on the day. And then the Saints, who have been pretty good stopping the run early on in this season, they see they allowed 50, allowed at least 100 yards in this game. Trying to see where summary. Yeah, so the Buccaneers had 114 total yards in this game. So they were able to run it pretty effectively, unlike other teams that they played earlier in the season where they weren't able to run it as well. So that was something that was kind of started becoming a glaring issue on the defense, is not being able to stop the run. The main 2 runners that were given the Saints fits were Rashad White, who had 15 carries for 56 yards on a 3.7 yard average with 11 long, and then Baker Mayfield had 8 rushes against the Saints. Like, we're talking about Baker Mayfield, we're not talking about like Bryce Young or Justin Fields or Jordan Love or Josh Allen. We're talking about Baker Mayfield had 8 rushes for 31 yards for a 3.9 yard average. That's almost 4 yards a carry by Baker Mayfield, and had a long of 10. And that's pretty much where most of their yards came from. And then Chris Godwin had a big game. He was the one towards the end of the fourth quarter that pretty much put the nail in the Saints' coffin with that big like 56 or 47 yard completion that took him down to like the 5 yard line. But he had 8 catches for 114 yards, 14.3 average, 42 long, and 11 targets. And I don't know how that has to be something with Lattimore not playing as well. I know on every pass he wasn't on Chris Godwin, but that's got to be on Lattimore, because Mike Evans went out of this game. But so that you should have been able to designate Lattimore onto Chris Godwin then. But for some reason he was still able to get his yards, because Mike Evans, he went out towards the end of the first half, and he only had three catches for 40 yards for a 13.3 average with an 18 yard long. and that was off of 3 targets. So he caught pretty much everything that was thrown to him against against Lattimore. So he was on his way of winning that battle, rarely or getting a rare win over Lattimore, and that with their long history. And then Devin Tompkins was had 4 catches for 45 yards, 11.3 yard average, a 26-yard long, and a touchdown off of 4 targets. And then Cade Otton had 3 catches for 13 yards, a 4.3 average, a 6-yard long, and then the 1 touchdown on the play that looked like it was going to be a sack by Cam Jordan. And Mayfield made the great play of flipping it forward for a touchdown at the last second. That came off of four targets, and then Trey Palmer. He only had 2 catches for 6 yards with an average of 3 yards, but he had the long of 5, and then but he had the touchdown, and that was the touchdown that put them up 14-3. So that game was pretty much over after that play, and he had 3 targets. And then just look at the players that sacked the Saints. So the Buccaneers big nose tackle, not necessarily known for being a great pass rusher, Vita Vea, who's coming off a pectoral injury, had 3 total tackles, 2 solo with 2 sacks, and then Antonio Winfield Jr., who had a great game. Some people said he broke up some passes and what was a big contributor with making some tackles for losses in this game. But he had nine total tackles, 6 solo, and he had another sack. He had like 2 tackles for loss, and I don't know if they listed that drop. I'm saying it's a drop, the 50-yard touchdown drop by Chris Olave. I don't know if they categorize that as a pass deflection or not, but it was just more of a bad play by Chris Olave, and maybe if Derek Carr would have been 100% healthy, he would have been able to get it out in front of Olave just a little bit more. But yeah, those are the team stats. Pretty much everything on the Buccaneers side and their log looks great, and then pretty much everything looks terrible for the Saints. But let's get into my player of the game, hot take, and my game pick here. So my player of the game here was Marshawn Lattimore. This was kind of a 2-part uh, pick, for game player of the game. Like it was like going to be like the player of the game and kind of a hot take as well. But I thought Lattimore was going to hold Mike Evans under 50 yards, and he was going to get an interception. He didn't get an interception, but I guess you could say he held Mike Evans under 40 yards because he only had 3 catches for 40 yards, and with a 13.3 average with the 18-yard long off of three catches. But there should be an asterisk in that because he went out in the second half due to a hamstring injury, and it looked like he was on his way to get even more than 50 yards in this game because he caught some catches on Marshawn Lattimore, even drew a big pass interference call on Marshawn Lattimore on a play that if Lattimore wouldn't have tripped him, grabbed him by the leg at the end of the play, it looked like it was probably going to end up being a big touchdown completion to him. But I can't say that Lattimore is the player got the pick right because for being the player of the game because Mike Evans didn't play the whole game, but looked like he was more on pace to get more than 50 yards. And Lattimore, he didn't get an interception, which a much needed turnover, another turnover in this game would have been a big help. And then my hot take ended up being right, but I don't know if it ended up helping the Saints. I don't know if they would have looked any better if it would have been Jameis Winston. But my hot take was that Derek Carr was going to play. Just a week later, I thought, yeah, he's going to play. He's a tough guy. He's probably just as good of an option as Jameis Winston just because of the swagger and confidence he brings to the team. But you saw none of that. This team looked like they were like demoralized and beaten and had lost all confidence at times in this game, and they just looked bad. And then, but yeah, I got that right with Derek Carr. It may have been better. It's hard to say that it would have been better uh, if Jameis Winston would have got the start because he comes in and his first throw is an interception, but can't say that it didn't give the Saints any kind of boost with Carr playing hurt. That's for sure because it definitely looked like he was off on some of his throws and the majority of his throws were just check downs to Alvin Kamara. So I don't know if receivers were lax in running their routes and just weren't getting open. And then my game pick, uh, this was the second week in a row I picked the Saints to lose, and my score was kind of flip flopping the point differential a little bit, but the total was close to being the same. I picked the Buccaneers to win 19-14, but the Saints they weren't even able to get 10 points in this game, and the Buccaneers they were able to get more than 20 points, so they broke that defensive streak of 20 or less that the Saints had going by scoring 26. But got majority of those picks. The player of the game, at least the part where Mike Evans didn't get more than 50 yards, and then got the hot take and got the game pick, and the score wasn't far off. It definitely wasn't a offensive showing by the Saints at least, and that definitely wasn't a shootout. But man, uh, this game was just not fun to watch. It was. I would say that Dennis Allen has had some bad games since he's been the head coach of the Saints, and just as the history of the Saints going back to the Peyton era, this was one of the worst losses I think that I've ever really watched, or definitely one of the worst offensive performances, that's for sure. Even though they had some games where they only scored like 9 points last year, and 9, 14 points in some games last year where they didn't look good as well. I think they lost a game like 16-17 against Tampa Bay last year as well. But that, yeah, I got to take all those into account. That at least then in the previous two losses, not this one, at least Tom Brady was their quarterback. I mean, it just kills me that it's Baker Mayfield. So the Saints, uh, they'll be playing Bill Belichick and the Patriots, who looked just as bad offensively, maybe even worse. At least they were worse on defense because they took like the worst loss in Bill Belichick's coaching history, and his coaching career. That they got beat down. Like, I want to talk about how it's been rough being a Saints fan this year. The Patriots they lost 38-3 to the Patriots. So both of these teams will be looking to get a get back game, to try to get back on track. And the Patriots they lost their best like pass rushing outside linebacker Matthew Judon, and I think they're down to their third, fourth string cornerbacks. But injuries from other teams haven't been able haven't mattered, for their opponents. The Saints haven't been able to capitalize on any of the injuries that their opposing teams are dealing with. They weren't able to deal with half the starters being out for Green Bay, and then they were missing a couple players in this game as well. They were missing one of their starting corners in this game against Tampa Bay. But the Saints, when other teams have injured players, it doesn't matter at all. You don't notice it at all for the team that they're playing. But when the Saints have injured players, injured starters, it's glaringly noticeable. So kind of similar to when the Tampa Bay game was coming up. I'm not feeling overly confident that the Saints are going to beat the Patriots in New England. So I can't say I'm excited or really juiced up about this game. I just know it's probably going to be a get back game for whoever wins this game, and I would hope after these two demoralizing losses by the Saints, and then it's kind of two demoralizing losses for the Saints because you go back to losing uh, to the Green Bay Packers 17-18, but just in recent losses for Green Bay and the Patriots, you would expect both of these teams to be very motivated. So hopefully, if nothing else, we get a little bit better game than the 26-9 loss and the 38-3 loss. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So so who dat? And can I get a check, please?